All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into an idea so powerful it literally redrew the map of Europe and then the whole world. We're talking about nationalism.
You know, for the longest time, if you lived in Europe, you didn't think of yourself as French or German. Nope. Your identity was tied to your king. You were a subject of this monarch or you lived in that empire. The whole continent was just this giant, messy patchwork of kingdoms.
So, what flipped the switch? How do we get from being, subjects of some king to citizens of a nation? That's the story we're going to trace today. The journey of this single idea that completely took over the continent. And our story starts in a pretty unexpected place. Not with a battle or a political degree, but with an artist. Yeah, an artist. Back in 1848, a French guy named Frédéric Sériot painted a picture of a future he was dreaming about. And what he painted was, well, it was basically science fiction for his time. A world without kings. Instead, he imagined a world of democratic republics, all these different nations living side by side peacefully. A world run by the people for the people. Just wow. What a concept for back then.
Okay, so if you look closely at his work, it's just packed with symbols. You've got this long line of people from all these different nations marching past the Statue of Liberty. And look on the ground. You see the broken pieces of crowns and thrones. Liberty herself is holding the torch of enlightenment and the Charter of the Rights of Man. I mean, the message couldn't be clearer, right? The age of kings is done. The age of the people is here.
Now, this dream of his didn't just come out of nowhere. It was fueled by something huge, something absolutely world-changing that had happened a few decades before, the French Revolution. That was the spark.
Yeah, 1789. That's when France basically gave the world the blueprint for a modern nation. Suddenly, power wasn't in the hands of one king anymore. It was transferred to millions of citizens. And this wasn't just about politics. It was a total identity shift. They got a new flag, the tricolor, a new government, the National Assembly, and they even pushed for one national language, French, to bring everyone together.
And who carries this revolutionary fire across Europe? A pretty complicated guy, Napoleon Bonaparte. I mean, talk about a paradox. This is the man who killed democracy in France by crowning himself emperor, yet his armies ended up spreading the ideas of the revolution everywhere they marched. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
So at first, a lot of people in the places Napoleon conquered were actually happy to see him. They thought, great, here's a guy getting rid of the old feudal system. But that honeymoon phase didn't last long. Pretty soon they realized this liberation came with some serious strings attached. We're talking higher taxes, censorship, and being forced to fight in Napoleon's army. Their political freedom, poof, gone.
So Napoleon is finally defeated in 1815, but that doesn't mean things just snap back to normal. You can't just put the genie back in the bottle. The idea of the nation was out there, and it kicked off this massive 100-year tug-of-war between the new way of thinking and the old guard.
So in one corner, you've got this new movement, liberal nationalism. This was really the idea of the educated middle class, the merchants, the lawyers, the factory owners. What did they want? It's pretty simple. Constitutions, representative government, and an end to all the special perks for the aristocrats.
And in the other corner, the conservatives. This is your old-school establishment. The kings, the church, the landowners. Basically the guys who beat Napoleon. And their goal was even simpler. Hit the rewind button. They wanted to bring back the monarchies and the old social order, just like it was before the French Revolution messed everything up.
And this quote from the Austrian Chancellor, Metternich, who is a top conservative, really nails it. When France sneezes, the rest of Europe catches a cold. He knew these revolutionary ideas were like a virus. Once they started in France, they could spread like wildfire everywhere else.
And guess what? He was absolutely right to be scared. Because from 1830 to 1848, Europe just exploded with revolutions. France kicks out its king, again. That inspires Belgium to break off from the Netherlands, and Greece finally wins its independence from the massive Ottoman Empire. The idea of the nation wasn't just an idea anymore. It was an unstoppable force.
Okay, so we've established that nationalism is this super powerful idea. But how do you actually do it? How do you take that idea and build a real physical country, especially when your people are spread out all over the place? Well, let's look at two of the biggest case studies, Germany and Italy. In Germany, the liberals tried the nice way first. In 1848, they tried to unify the country with a parliament and a constitution, and it failed. So, in steps Prussia and its hardcore chief minister, Otto von Bismarck. He basically said, we're not going to do this with speeches and votes. We're going to do this with blood and iron. And he did. Over 7 years, he masterminded a few wars, and boom, Prussia basically forced the German states into one big empire.
Italy, though, was a totally different beast. It was a complete mess. You had all these little states, but the real problem was they were controlled by other countries. The Austrians had the north, the Spanish Bourbons had the south, the Pope controlled the middle. How on earth do you unite a country like that?
Well, Italy's unification was like the ultimate group project. You needed the brain. That was Chief Minister Cavour, who made a smart deal with France to kick Austria out of the north. You needed the sword. That was Giuseppe Garibaldi, a true revolutionary who led an army of volunteers to free the South. And you needed the crown, King Victor Emmanuel II, who became the symbol everyone could rally around. Diplomacy, passion, and politics all coming together. Just brilliant.
So by the late 1800s, it's official. The nation-state has won. It's the new normal. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. Once nationalism was on top, the idea itself started to change. It became, well, a lot more dangerous.
I mean, at first, nationalism had this beautiful romantic side. People tried to give their nation a face, right? To make it feel personal. So in France, you had Marianne. She stood for liberty and reason. In Germany, you had Germania, all about heroism and strength. The point was to give people a symbol to rally around, to feel that sense of unity.
But that national pride, that unity, it started to sour. It twisted into something ugly, imperialism. Suddenly, it wasn't about us being free. It became about proving we are better than them by conquering them. The new game was to see who could build the biggest empire.
And the place where this new aggressive nationalism was most dangerous? The Balkans. You had the old Ottoman Empire falling apart, which let all these new little nations pop up, but they were all super jealous and competitive with each other. And then, to pour gasoline on the fire, the big European powers, Russia, Germany, Britain, all started getting involved fighting for control. It turned the whole region into a ticking time bomb, a real powder keg.
And here's the ultimate tragedy of the story. That explosive mix of nationalism and imperialism, that powder keg, it finally went off, and that explosion was the First World War. The idea that started with dreams of liberty and unity ended up leading to one of the deadliest conflicts in human history.
So this whole journey leaves us with a really tough question, one we're still wrestling with today. On one hand, nationalism can be this incredible force for unity and freedom, but on the other, it can fuel hatred and horrific conflict. So where do you draw the line? What's the difference between healthy national pride and dangerous prejudice? Between building a nation and starting a war? That's the question this story leaves us with. And honestly, the world still doesn't have a clear answer.